Hi guys, we are back with another 15-minute interviews. In a second, I'm gonna let our guest introduce herself. But before I go into that, I would say that it's been a while since I've done a 15-minute interview, but I'm excited that you guys are able to have another one. I'm gonna keep trying to fill it up as much as possible. My overall goal is that people get served somewhere or the other. Everybody has a benefit, I think, from us doing 15-minute interviews. So I'm excited to see it keep flowing. The next thing and the thought that I have to keep going 15-minute interviews is getting into topics. And so if anybody is watching and they're interested in a certain topic, I can definitely throw that out to therapists and let them know, like, hey, we're interested in a topic. Let's have a meet on our Zoom meeting here and just talk about whatever topic that you are interested in. So if you're interested in a specific topic, please, please send it over. We can definitely do it on 15-minute interviews. All right, so we're going to let Rebecca introduce herself. So if you'll introduce yourself to us and tell us where you're at.
All right. My name is Rebecca Newkirk, and I am a licensed clinical social worker. And I am based in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but I'm licensed both in New Mexico and also Virginia. So I'm seeing clients in both of those states.
Good deal. Well, thanks for being with us today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. So what is it exactly that you do?
So currently, I'm seeing clients online predominantly in New Mexico and Virginia. I like working with I work with a lot of teens and young adults who have something called complex PTSD. So basically, that is like when you have this chronic experience of feeling unsafe when you're growing up, and that affects your relationships and the way that you interact with your life as an adult. And that's just my favorite thing to work with. I really enjoy that. I also teach graduate level classes at a local university, and I like that too.
Okay. What topics are you teaching?
Right now I'm teaching a practice class, an advanced multicultural practice class. So it's basically like teaching new social workers how to do therapy, which is the best.
Okay. And your profession is what? Are you an LMFT, LCSW?
I'm an LCSW.
Yes,
So I'm a social worker.
Licensed clinical social worker. All right, cool deal. Okay, so all this interview, we're going to be just stealing all kinds of knowledge from you, just so you know. And so the first part of it is what's the most impactful points that you think that you make to help others? I know when I'm practicing, there seems to be a theme, usually in weeks at least, that I'm always talking about the same kind of thing. What is it for you?
Yeah. Okay, so the number one thing I think is, if being mean to yourself helped you to actually make change, then it would have worked already. We change so much better. We're able to make change so much more easily if we just give ourselves permission to be who we are right now in this moment and try not to judge it. And I think Carl Rogers has an amazing quote about that. And I just love that quote. And I feel like I'm telling people that all the time. Another point that I think is really important that I feel like I'm saying constantly is there's so much information in our bodies. I think we ignore it. And trauma in particular tends to bring us up out of our bodies into our brains, and we're comfortable there, and we can logic through things, and we can just kind of like make the emotional and make the body part go away. And it's really like to our detriment, because we miss stuff. We miss knowing when we need to set a boundary because something feels icky. We miss when we want more closeness, or we need to ask something from someone that we love. And when we don't have that information, it can kind of be like trying to navigate the seas without a compass. It's like we're just sort of like lost and floating, and that can be really uncomfortable.
Okay. And yeah, I really like that. I like that because the idea that our bodies are kind of our guide, and us not paying attention to it and kind of going through life, I think is a common theme for a lot of us. And so being able to look at it and say, hey, I pay attention. There's a book actually called, we're not in the books yet, but there's a book that is called The Body Keeps Score.
Yes.
And so I think that a lot of times, we just ignore what we're going through and feeling, right? And that's really the art of living, is to be able to know what it is that our body's trying to tell us and
right.
Interact with it, right?
Yeah, it's so common that I'll have clients who come in and like, I'll ask them, do you feel like you're connected to your body? Do you feel like you pay attention to that? And they'll say something like, oh yeah, like totally, I know, and then I'll say, oh, do you ever notice at the end of the day that you haven't eaten? and you don't realize until it's like painful because you haven't eaten such a long time that it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And then, oh yeah, well, I guess that does happen sometimes. And so it can just slip right past us. We just don't even know that we're not paying attention.
Right, right. Yeah, definitely a good practice to be able to start looking at that. Okay. So, recommended knowledge. So anybody that you follow or any books that I'm following, like on social media that we can follow, any books or podcasts, anything that you can give us where you get your knowledge from.
Yeah. Okay. So I love mindfulness. A big part of my practice is coming from a space of mindfulness. And the person that I go to for mindfulness his name is Jon Kabat-Zinn. And he has a ton of mindfulness guided meditations on YouTube. He has a bunch of talks on YouTube where he's sort of describing what he thinks mindfulness is. And I find it really helpful because I feel like mindfulness has sort of become a buzzword.
Yeah.
It's losing its meaning because it's so like we're talking about it so much in pop culture, which is great, but we're missing the nuance of what makes it what it is. And I feel like Jon Kabat-Zinn is a really good source for getting information about how to utilize it in a way that's really going to help.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I appreciate that. So are there any other books or anything else before you tell us the story? Because that's going to be the next thing.
Yeah, one more. I also really like John Bradshaw. He has a ton of books, and my favorite book by him is Healing the Shame That Binds You.
Okay.
So I don't think he's writing anymore. I'm pretty sure he's still alive, but he's just an amazing like source of knowledge for shame stuff and trauma stuff and how relationship dynamics really affect the way that we experience ourselves and the way that we act, and how we hold trauma and shame for the family. So sometimes we're like actually absorbing it from the people that we love. And I just find that really, really incredible.
Okay. Yeah, I'm interested in reading that book too. I always feel like those are the kind of the hidden or the things that aren't said out loud that really keep people trapped, right? Like that's what keeps us stuck in whatever we're going through is we're not able to either identify what's going on with shame or be able to, for a second, be able to even express it, right? So
yeah.
So do you have a story for us today?
I do have a story. Okay, so the first thing you need to know about my story is that I have a 5-year-old niece that is one of the most adorable little people that you will ever meet. If you have the pleasure of meeting her, she's really great. And she's very rambunctious, and she's very vocal, and she's very verbal and articulate. So I think we have a tendency, the adults in her life have a tendency to think that she is more capable of communicating emotional stuff than she is because she's so articulate. Which I think is really common for really precocious kids.
Yeah.
So I was babysitting her one day, and her parents were having a date day, and that was great, and it was all going really well. We were at the museum, I think, and we were talking about bath time. And she told me that she wanted to have her bath first, and I was watching her little brother too. And I said, no, we're gonna bathe your brother first. And she got really like agitated about it. And she got really upset, and I didn't really understand why. And I just kept telling her, like, your brother always takes his bath first. He's gonna take his bath first. It's not really, it doesn't have to be a big deal. And so as we drove to her, we got back to her house, and then we started getting ready for bath time, and she just lost it. She was so mad, and she was acting out in ways that I haven't really seen from her, at least not very often, right? All kids act out sometimes, but she was pretty mad at me. And I bathed her brother. Like I said, I did his bath first. And when it was time for her bath, she was just like screaming at me. And I realized at that moment, after, kind of dealing with my frustration, she had a cut on her knee. And she's really scared. You know how it stings when you put your cut in water. So she was terrified of getting it wet. And so she wanted to just kind of like get it over with. And I didn't give her that opportunity. I didn't let her just get it over with. I wasn't listening to her. And so after I sort of like supported her through the bath, and we talked through getting her knee under the water, and, it was time to drain it. I apologized to her, and I said, I didn't listen. Like, you told me what you needed, and you told me that you were scared. And I really didn't listen to you, and that's my fault. And I'm sorry. And because she's really precocious, she said, well, I guess I could have told you differently, which is really adorable. But it's not her responsibility because she's 5. I'm not 5. And I guess the point of this story for me is a couple of things. And number one is like when you mess up, own it. When you realize that you did something to hurt someone else or that was inconsiderate, it really makes such a big difference to just be able to say like, hey, I saw that I did the thing and I take responsibility for that. That wasn't your fault and it shouldn't have happened to you. Because her attitude was completely different after we had that conversation. She just went back to normal. She went back to herself. And the other part is that we oftentimes, I think, even with adult loved ones, so with spouses and with, our siblings and our parents, we just assume that they can tell us what they need from us and that they're communicating their emotions and their emotional needs and all that good stuff. And a lot of the time people can't. A lot of the time we just don't have the words for it. And I think this is a good example of that because she was 5. So of course it would have been difficult for her to tell me that she was angry or why she was angry. But I think it happens a lot. And so kind of noticing people's behavior and noticing and pointing it out. Hey, I'm noticing that you're acting kind of weird with me today. Did something happen? Do you need something from me? Can we talk about it? Just having those little conversations can make huge changes in our relationships.
Right. That story kind of hits home for me because I have a 5-year-old who, adorable too. Kind of like what you described about your niece. But what stands out for me to add on to your story is the idea of our busy or our agenda taking over our ability to listen. Right? I feel like that happens to me all the time as a parent. And so if our busy and our agenda takes over our ability to actually be present in what's going on, sometimes we miss some real opportunities, right? Mm-hmm. To connect and just to at least be able to listen, So,
right.
Yeah. Okay. And I appreciate that story a lot. So the last thing that I'm going to ask from you is for you to give some kind of challenge or homework out to our audience.
All right. So this is a fun one. I really, so I think a lot of the time when we're talking about homework from therapists, we're talking about negative stuff. We're kind of like, I want you to journal your negative feelings, or I want you to write a letter to somebody that you're mad at or something like that. And although that stuff is really helpful and it's really necessary and it absolutely has its place, I think sometimes we need to be spending some time doing fun things as homework for therapy. And so we talked earlier about how we're not really in our bodies a lot of the time, especially those of us who've had complex trauma or feelings of not being safe chronically over time. We just kind of pull up out of our bodies and we don't spend any time there. Now, one of the ways that we can actually come back into our bodies is mindfulness. And we talked a tiny bit about that earlier. And one of my favorite ways to practice mindfulness is when I'm doing something that I know I really enjoy. So for instance, I like to practice mindfulness when I'm eating pizza. I pay very close attention to what the pizza tastes like and what it smells like and what it looks like and how my body feels. This is the most important part, how my body feels while I'm eating it. So how do I know that I like it? Where do I feel that in my body? How does it sit in my body? How does it change as I go through the slice of pizza? And so my challenge to you is to find something that you know you really enjoy, that's like your favorite thing, whether it's like running, or exercising, or laying in bed and just like, being a starfish, whatever that is for you, and really focus on, how do I know that I like this? What does it feel like? And how is this experience for me right now?
Would that be a time or a daily thing? Would you put a time or a daily, amount on it, or what would be the goal as far as?
I would say if you could try to do that at least once a day, that would be amazing. I think we don't. That's the homework I give other people, and I don't do it every day, so I totally understand. And I heard this research recently, and unfortunately I don't have the research paper to back it up, but we're always talking about neural pathways and building positive neural pathways, brain plasticity. So basically making a path in your brain to something that you want instead of the path in your brain to something that you don't want. Mm-hmm. And when our brain is making connections, it makes a bunch of connections at once. and then it prunes the ones that we're not using. And that's how we get really good at things like driving, right? You don't even have to think about it.
Right.
So I heard this research recently that if you maintain something for 20 seconds, your brain will maintain that connection. That's the information your brain needs to say, this is staying, we're keeping this. So if you can really focus on the body sensation of pleasure for 20 seconds or more, you are building the neural pathway. You're building that path in your brain to be able to feel that pleasure again more easily and make it more accessible to you later.
Okay. Cool deal. So I appreciate you sharing today and spending some time with us as well. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Guys,
Thank you for having me.
no problem. You guys, this 15-minute interviews and good information today. What I like is that at the bottom of the video, you guys will be able to go and visit Rebecca with her information, probably website information, and then also you can replay the video. So I didn't take too many notes, but I know that I can go back and rewatch, and there are a couple of things I want to go back and revisit. So that's the whole benefit of 15-minute interviews. So you may not be the person who feels like, oh, that's something that serves me. But if you share it on your page, it serves somebody. Like I have 600 friends on Facebook, and one of those 600 needs this video, I guarantee it. And so please be that person who's serving others. And it's a simple share. Like it doesn't really hurt you to do that. All right, we'll talk to you guys later. Take care.